On October 31st, 1517, German monk and theologian Martin Luther nailed his critique of Roman Catholicism to the door of Castle Church in Wittenberg. He meant to start a conversation. What he started was a revolution. Unitarian Universalism has multiple roots across what we now know to be a vast religious landscape. But certainly the contribution of Martin Luther is among them. We are a dissenting tradition, born from an unintended revolution that had only hoped to prompt reflection, to spark up a sincere and worthy discussion of espoused values in action, in practice. UU historian Reverend Dr. J. Atkinson, who may be familiar to you as a guest in our pulpit, describes UUs since the inception and inclusive of our many roots as people who question, think for themselves, claim authority of their own reason and experience, and insist that ideas and beliefs must make sense and lead to a unified and intelligible understanding of the world that we live in. The earliest Unitarians, asserting the oneness of God, were pushing back on the Trinity. They were leaning on the work of Martin Luther only a decade or so before to make their argument. Emerging Protestantism was shaped by friction. Dissenting voices, leaders from within Roman Catholicism, questioning, reflecting, and insisting, spawned multiple new traditions and ways of being, ours included. And this is often the way a new tradition is formed, not in a vacuum, all by itself emerging whole, but from the rub, the wear and tear of real people living within it, wrestling with the rules set for them, and demanding change. This is one way we might begin to think about what it really means to live a question. We'll circle back to that. Martin Luther was friends with his barber. I'm friends with mine. It's Jonah's mom. Around the time he nailed his thoughts to the front door, his barber asked him how to pray. And I like to imagine extraordinary historical figures doing exceptionally ordinary things. So the idea of Martin Luther going down the street for a haircut and a confessional chat with his barber is one that makes me smile. I don't know if he had his answer ready or if he took it home and waited for his hair to grow back before he could return with an answer. But he did share his answer, and it lives on in the form of a Lutheran spiritual practice known as the four-strand garland. I might have mentioned it before, but as a lifelong UU, I made it all the way to divinity school before I'd ever read the Bible. No one thought that was odd or unusual. It's rather common. That's how far we've come from a shared Christian self-identity, or how far we've grown from that particular root. A friend who was preparing for ministry with Disciples of Christ and was kind of appalled, invited me to join the Bible study that she held each week in her home. And so it was in that context that I first encountered the four-strand garland. Loosely, here's what Martin Luther told his barber when he was asked how to pray. First, select a morsel of sacred text with which to work. A couple of sentences tends to be plenty. A brief aside, I have been in relationship with this practice for a while, And it's a fascinating way to explore any text that you hold sacred. But I'm pretty sure Martin Luther meant the Bible. He guided to read it through once, and as you do, consider what this sacred text has to teach you. A second time, read the text considering what gratitude this inspires in you. A third time, read it while wondering what about this text is begging my lament or breaking my heart. And having done the first 3 reflections, you read the text a final time to find the question you are now holding in reply. We might infer from this practice that for Martin Luther, prayer is a process of reflecting deeply on sacred text and discerning from that engagement a single question that is alive at the center of your being. A question to live, to love, to hold, not to answer, but to be with and be accompanied by. The question itself is the prayer. 400 years later, the published poet Rainer Maria Rilke was writing letters to a young military cadet, Franz Xaver Capus, and giving the same good advice. Another 100 years went by, and Anita Barrows and Joanna Macy put together a new translation of Rilke's Letters to a Young Poet. It's a sacred text for me. I recommend it to you wholeheartedly, even and maybe especially if you're familiar only with the earlier translations. Here is a long but worth it excerpt from the new version Rilke offers. Here, surrounded by the quiet of this immense land where sea winds blow, here I feel that no person has an answer for the questions and feelings arising from deep within you. For when addressing the most delicate and nearly unsayable, words fail even the best. But I believe, nevertheless, that you need not remain without help. Everything will become easier once you hold to nature, to the simple and insignificant, truly seen by so few. When you love the small and unpretentiously serve it and win its trust, then everything will become more coherent and clearer to you. You are young. Your life is just beginning. I ask you to have patience with all that is unresolved in your heart and to try to love the questions themselves, like closed rooms, like books written in a foreign language. Don't try to find the answers now. They cannot be given anyway, because you would not be able to live them, for everything is to be lived. Live the questions now. Perhaps you then may gradually, without noticing, one day in the future, live into the answers. Perhaps you bear within yourself the capacity to imagine and shape a sacred way of life. Prepare yourself for that. Trust what comes to you. To live the questions, to love them, to encourage and encounter them as a form of prayer itself requires preparation, practice, determination, and faithfulness. That faith might look like trusting yourself, the instincts and knowledge that arrive unbidden as though they've been ingrained somewhere in our being or written on our hearts before we were born. That faith might look like a willingness to grapple with lessons, gratitude, inspiration, heartbreak, and lament, like allowing and inviting each in turn, because when we do, we are transformed by them. That faith might be simply an aliveness, holding a question in such a way that we are noticeably alert, attuned, actively listening with our living. Many traditions discourage curiosity, but ours is built on it. And in my opinion, it's one of the best things we've got going. Ian Leslie, British journalist and author, illuminates this truth, sharing that our oldest stories about curiosity are warnings. Adam and Eve and the apple of knowledge, Icarus and the sun, Pandora's box. Early Christian theologians railed against curiosity. St. Augustine claimed that God fashioned hell for the inquisitive. Even humanist philosopher Erasmus suggested that curiosity was greed by a different name. For most of Western history, it has been regarded as at best a distraction, at worst a poison, corrosive to the soul and to society. There's a reason for this. Curiosity is unruly. It doesn't like rules, or at least it assumes that all rules are provisional. I agree. Subject to the laceration of a smart question nobody has yet thought to ask. It disdains the approved pathways, preferring diversions, unplanned excursions, impulsive left turns. In short, curiosity is deviant. Pursuing it is liable to bring you into conflict with authority at some point. Who here has been in trouble for asking too many questions? It's a mark of pride among us, a badge of honor, really. It's fundamental to who we are and how we practice with one another. When I go to church, when I listen to a sermon, what I am hoping for is a good question to walk away with and turn over all week long. Who here often finds themselves in conflict with authority? Confronting, subverting, it's a feature, not a flaw. This is the stuff we are made of, and the strength of our bond made visible. We've got questions, and we are invigorated and enlivened by them. We opened our worship with a call from Krista Tippett to hold questions that encourage our moral imagination, that we might improve in our ability to remake the world. Something else she's fond of sharing is that doubt is not the opposite of faith. Certainty is. Our doubt is an expression of our faithfulness. Questions and a questioning nature are one root of our faith and our faith in action. May we embrace not knowing as intrinsic to who we are, as an aspect of our shared identity and way of being in community. May we live with open hearts, with wonder, awe, and curiosity. May our good questions be our companions as we remake the shared world we are longing for. May it be so. Amen. Amen.